So talking about finalizing this set, we're going to have a cover sheet, right? And your cover sheet should have on it a rendering of your project, showing the building and the site and some amenities of the site. Okay, and then we could also put on an image of the site showing the relationship of the building to the parking lots and streets and so forth, but without any dimensioning or labeling or anything on it really, just showing where, at a glance, where grass is and where parking lots are and where streets are. And that would probably be at a reduced scale, so it fits on the sheet, and I've put it on here at 1 inch equals 40 feet. So it's just something to kind of dress up the cover a little bit and show your project. You're going to need a project name on there, and whatever your project is, and you're going to have an index of sheets. So let's look at that index of sheets, and you may have different sheets than this, but I know some of you, or at least one of you, has a two-story, so you're going to have 2 levels. And so I have a cover sheet. I have the main floor plan, which is my first sheet of the set other than the cover. We're going to do a reflective ceiling plan because we're going to put in a suspended ceiling in the office end of the building. And so we'll talk about that a little more later. That goes pretty quick. So we're just going to show the grid system and some lights that are dropped into it. You've already created a section detail sheet, so that'll be the next one. Elevations, you may have 1 or 2 sheets of elevations. We're going to have then the S sheets, which are the structural sheets, which are the anchor bolt plan, S1, and the foundation plan, which is S2. And then we're going to have another site plan sheet. So the site plan that's showing up on the cover sheet is just an image of showing where trees and things like that might be. The real site plan will be dimensioned as how big the parking lot is and things like that. Okay, so that's your cover sheet. Let's look at, I have a floor plan sheet here, and yours might be different, or probably is different. Not necessarily that your floor plan is different. I'm assuming that's going to be different, but the things you might put on a floor plan sheet to take up some of the space around it. And I worked it out so that I could get my door and window schedule on my floor plan sheet. You may not have been able to do that. You may have it on a different sheet. That's okay. I also put on, I have some interior elevations of some curtain walls that I put inside my floor plan that are interior curtain walls. So I've shown them on this sheet. So my floor plan is at 1/8 inch equals a foot. I put these details of the curtain walls on at 1/4 inch equals a foot. If you had more space, you could make them 3/8, whatever it fits on there. And I know some of you have been discussing putting on whichever sheet you ended up putting your door schedule on. It's probably much bigger than mine and takes up so much space. When you bring it onto a sheet, and if you click on it, you can adjust the widths of these categories by pulling those grips. So if your schedule is too long and it takes up too much space, you can minimize the widths of these by just dragging these grips around. So if that's part of your issue, you can do things like that. Another thing you can do is, if it's too deep, see this little marker on the side here? I can turn it into 2 schedules and fit it across the whole bottom of the sheet maybe. Okay, so once you've done that, there's no real way to undo it. If you click it again, I think it just rearranges it some more. So I'm just going to undo it. But you can do that with a schedule. You can divide it into 2 bracketed areas to make it fit on a sheet. Okay, I happen to have only 1 window other than these curtain walls, so I only have 1 window in here. So I got that to fit here. So again, you might have it on a different sheet. That's not the problem problem here. The problem is getting it to fit on your sheet. Okay. The other thing that I want you to always remember is we want the sheets full. You know, when you have a sheet, let's say the only thing you have on your sheet is your floor plan and you got a lot of white space around it, that's not a good thing. You want to put as much on a sheet as you can. Thinking of the contractor out in the field that's building this project, would he rather have 4 sheets packed with information, or would he rather have 10 sheets with only a little bit on each sheet? They want as much as they can get on one sheet. I'm not saying you have to rearrange yours, but do you think it's a good thing to have the door schedule and window schedule on the floor plan sheet if you can? Obviously, you're not flipping sheets so much, right? So it's a good thing. And you don't have to make that change. I'm just suggesting that for future projects you might work on. Okay, the reflective ceiling plan is going to be a pretty basic sheet. Now this is a sheet where, like I just said, it's got too much white space on it, right? But maybe I don't have anything else to put on this sheet right now, but on this sheet I have the layout of the light fixtures in my office end of the building. Obviously, if we have some light fixtures in the shop, we could have also shown those, but we don't have time probably to do that right now. But we'll talk about this a little bit later. So we'll have this sheet on here. Other things that could go on this sheet then might be a schedule of lights fixtures. What type of fixtures are they? You know, things like that. There could be a section on here showing how the recessed assembly of the suspended ceiling hangs off the ceiling. So those are other things we could put on here if we had time, but we don't have time. So right now it'll just be this sheet by itself. Okay, then we have our section detail sheet, which I think we've pretty much filled up. You should have, you know, the 5 details on that sheet, and that pretty much fills the space up. So that's a good sheet. Elevations. I put all of mine on one sheet because they did fit, but I'm assuming most of you put them on 2 sheets. And that's okay because you're probably putting your door and window schedule on some of those sheets. And that's okay. But just to show you that they would have fit on one sheet if you planned it out right. Okay? But it's not a problem if you have them on 2 sheets. So I did that. I have a big chunk of white space here. If I were doing more on this project, I could pull a detail in there of something related to the elevations. So if we needed to take this project a little bit farther, a little more complete set, we could add some details onto that sheet as well. Then I have the anchor bolt sheet, which I haven't drug on here yet. But you already have one done, and that's just a matter of dragging it on there, right? And you have some details on your sheet too, I think. So that's going to be there. The one thing I want you to think about here is this is my anchor bolt plan. I brought that in, but it has too much information on it, right? I've got floor drains and footings and everything else showing up on here, so some of those things have to be hidden in the view, right? So make sure you do that. That the only thing on the anchor bolt plan is anchor bolt information and those details of the base plates and so forth. We'll go down to the foundation plan. And on your foundation plan, again, you have more details and so forth than I have on this one. But again, that has all your footings and floor drain and things like that. You have a more complete set there than a sheet there than I do at this point. So that one should be there. And then we have the site plan, which we haven't really talked about yet. Now you're developing a site plan so that you can create a rendering for your cover sheet, but we're going to have a site plan sheet. So on this sheet, my site plan is at 1 inch equals 20 feet. So with the site that I gave you, that fits on there pretty well. Again, I have some white space here where I could put in a planting schedule. If there, if you had a schedule of the trees and things that are going onto the site, you could have a other things that relate to the site. I guess in general, you could put signage type information. You could have general notes, things like that would fit on that sheet if we were taking it a little bit farther. But as far as dimensioning it, we need to dimension so that they could put in all this parking lot and have the distances away from the building, distances away from the property line, distances away from the curb, so forth. So as you can see, I've put a bunch of dimensions on here that would tell them how to install all that. And I'm showing the plantings that are going to be on the site. And on the building, it's just pretty basic. I'm going to go into this view here. When I first opened this up, it showed too much. It showed the roof, and maybe I talked about that yesterday, that we need to do some adjusting to the view range, possibly so that we're not seeing the roof and things like that. So it defaulted to the cut plane at being 200 feet above the building, and therefore we were seeing the roof. So I changed that to 5 feet to cut through and see the doors and stuff in the building. And we already talked about that yesterday, so I don't have to recover that. But those are things you want to make sure that you're just seeing the basic information on the building. And we talked about this yesterday also, that when you're laying out the site plan, that you go put in some annotation line work to show where the parking lot lines are and stuff, so that when you go to put the topography on the building, you're snapping to some of those existing lines you have. On this site plan, the topography is turned off. Okay, so if I went down here and clicked on this little light bulb, you can see that all the topography has been hidden in the view. I don't want that on my site plan. I want the dimension information on the site plan, so I've turned all that off at this point. Okay, so all these amenities that you want to show up on your rendering are on the on for that purpose, but they don't need to be on here for the site plan information. I'll deactivate that. Okay, so that's in general what your total set is going to be. Any questions about that? Okay, so just continue on. Do you have questions about creating that reflective ceiling plan? Have you done that before? You've done a little bit of that? No, yes? Okay. Okay, I'll talk about that in a little bit, but this is going to be the set that I'm looking for, the sheets, the organization of the sheets, and so forth. Okay,